Most people's photographs, I should imagine 90% are people and their family on holiday, which is fine, I take the photographs behind the people. My name is Jean Napier. I earn my living now as a photographer and a writer, but the photography started probably 40, 50 years ago, when I was given my first full SLR camera, and I had to teach myself how to use it, because photography tuition books in those days were like technical exams. And so gradually over the years I've worked more with that, and after I left Ford Motor Company nearly 35 years ago, photography had become more of my way I could earn a living, and that's up to now, where quite a few of us have a gallery where I can show my work, and it does really well. It's like a cooperative where all of us, all artists, we work there twice a fortnight, twice a month, and which is really good because it means we pay less commission and only a small fee for having our work on the wall, because that's the real problem nowadays, is actually getting your work to be seen other than on websites for people to be able to buy it. And that does very well because it's in a very popular town by the sea that gets visited by a lot of people, especially people with money. The other side of what I do, I've been exploring the landscape in Snowdonia for many, many, many years, and it is my absolute favourite place. And I have over the years, I think, I'm now on my 8th photography book, the last 3 of which I've written, which I'm going to wave in front of you now. These I've written as well as done all the photography for, and it's a really good way of publicising your work as well. And I don't earn a huge commission from them, but it's extra all the time, extra money. Life is easier now because I get my pension, so that's a backup for my earnings, because the pension's nowhere near enough to live on. So that and the sales of my photography and books is okay. It's a nice living.
What do you enjoy, or what do you find the most satisfying about creative activity, about getting involved in creative activity, and particularly photography?
Yeah, the most creative thing I enjoy really is the exploration of the landscape, just being there. And where I am, the land is unbuilt on. It's a national park, and there's ancient remains going back 3,000-4,000 years, tombs, etc. And that's what I love. And the photography is an extension of capturing this amazing history on the land, and then hence the writing. And that's what I really love, is the exploration and the way of capturing those special places for people to see. What got me first interested in the subject of the landscape and the history is just, I've always been a walker, me and the dog, and I'm a mountain leader, and I've been taking groups out on the mountains for 50 years, and I saw these special things and wanted to go back on my own and capture them. And yeah, that's it really. And people seem to like what I do, and so, which is great.
Some people would consider art and photography 2 different things, but what's your view on that?
It's an ancient debate that's been going on since the beginning of photography. I remember studying this, the history of photography at university, and my photography in a way falls into two categories the way I see it. One is a photograph of, which I sell lots of the coast and the place where I live and the sunsets, etc. And it's a different headspace because I know that these photographs will sell fine. And then there is definitely a more creative side where I might do very close-ups or distant photography or photography which is a longer exposure. So there are actually images that A, people would walk past and not notice, or B, don't actually exist to the naked eye. So that's, to me, the creative side of photography, which is good to play with. But it's not usually particularly well from a financial point of view, but it's great enjoyment for me. And yeah, for me, that is two different things.
But would you say that there's any similarities between photography and aspects of painting?
Again, I think it's like painting. You see a lot of paintings which I personally don't like, which look like photographs. I don't really see the point. I'm not particularly keen on totally abstract painting, but there's that sort of in between where they take the landscape and, I don't know, soften it, or they do something with it so it doesn't look like a photograph. And then that, to me, is my favourite type of painting, and that possibly goes more with my sort of more abstract photography. So there is definitely a link from that point of view. I've been asked this at university with my exams about artists or photographers that have influenced me, and not really photographers. I find landscape photographers are possibly too literal for me, that they haven't got this sense of place, it's more of a picture of. But there is the odd painter that influenced me. A friend of mine, Ken Bridges, his painting, and funnily enough, he actually comes with me quite a lot when I walk, and he helped me when I was making a film by carrying the tripod and the lunch and everything. And his painting's a bit like that. It's almost as being there, but not quite. And it's to do with the light on the land. There is, I can't remember his name. He's a photographer that lived right up in the middle of the nowhere in the mountains. I think his surname was Holmes. And his landscapes are quite simple, but it's all about the play of light on the land. They're just so beautiful and evocative, about a real sense of place. And that's to me what being in the landscape is about, a sense of place rather than this is a picture of.
So when you've talked about a sense of place, so when you go to a new place, how do you approach it before you take any photographs?
I've often had a look on OS maps. I'm not one for asking people if they've been there. I like to find my own way. And the audience OS maps are great because there's all sorts of odd marks on the land of ancient whatevers, and you see the topography as well. And so I might I'll go back to the same place often, time and time again, for photographs for the books, because you never know what the light's going to be like or the weather by the time you get there. So it could be complete. So sometimes I've had to go back quite a few times to get the type of shots I want for whatever I want it for, either an exhibition or book or whatever. But yeah, the OS maps I find really useful for potential interesting places to visit, which are away from the madding crowd, as it were. It's about time of day, weather, etc., and especially time of day and the seasons, because it depends on the angle of light on the land. And for instance, in the summer, I will go in the evening, because the angle of light means you get patterns and shapes and shadows on the land, which midday when the sun's overhead, it's just flat. So it's very much about the essence of the land. My favourite time to photograph is late autumn here, because the bracken has then gone red, so everything's not just the same shade of green. But it is, yeah, the weather, especially wild weather and clouds, etc. Full sun in the summer doesn't work for me.
And in the past, you started out doing a lot of black and white photography, and then moved into more colour. So what would you say about the differences for you as a photographer between black and white and colour, in terms of how you, maybe the approach you take to exploring each of them?
Black and white photography, I found it's very much, I really liked using black and white photography with photographing quarries, etc., things that are ancient, that were actually alive at the time of black and white photography. But again, you need to watch the light, because you can't have it too contrasty. It's much better photographing black and white in poor light, overcast, etc., to create the moods as well. Colour works, I found, is more commercial, and I gradually went over more to colour when I could print better and had better cameras. Yeah, and now I print on my own work, and I have now got a good printer that prints fantastic black and white photos, and I do sell some, but it's very much a different subject matter. Yeah, almost a nostalgia, the black and white, because I photographed black and white for probably 30 years and printed and processed on my own film in say dark rooms. But now I use a colour printer, which is a very good one, and it's all digital, which is much easier, much more commercial from a selling point of view. And yeah, and I'd never liked being in dark rooms, all them chemicals.
What would you say has been the role of art and photography and creative activity in your life generally, and how it's kind of influenced your own personal growth and development?
Right from an early age, when I started photographing, and when I teach photography, you really look at things in much more detail. As you walk along, you're looking much more at shape and form of the land, small things that make up the landscape, rather than just gazing through it. And people that I've taught will say this: we're now much more aware of what's around us when you're actually capturing the landscape in whatever form, whether it's painting or photography. And yeah, I think it makes it quite special. Yeah, and it's much more of a sort of intimate relationship, I suppose, with the land and what's there. It is helping people to see and stop and look. And I've waited for a photograph where I might have gone somewhere wanting the sun on the subject and the clouds come over. And sometimes I'll just sit and wait for the clouds to go. Sometimes they don't, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it's about being patient with the light. Yeah, I remember sitting on a beach up in North Wales waiting for a sunset over an island, and I waited 4 hours. And while I was there, I built piles of stones and just sat and looked. And it wasn't about wasted time. It was just about being there and just seeing the light changing and visualising the history, because it was a beach where there'd been a huge amount of shipwrecks. So it was very special 4 hours, and I got the top photograph I wanted in the end. Thank goodness.
You've been working in photography and this whole thing for a long time now. So, How do you find inspiration and maintain your creative momentum?
Mostly, I think, because of the books, because I'm revisiting places I've been before with a bit of a different headspace, and I'm also thinking about the image, how it's going to fit in the scheme of things, about what I'm going to write about. Yeah, and I don't take anywhere near as many photographs as I used to. But what I enjoy is when I take the dog for a walk, and I use just my phone and Facebook. And we've got a local photography Facebook page, and it's really nice to just capture like reflections, things normally people wouldn't think of looking at in my local landscape. Yeah, it's often reflections or marks on the land or whatever, and people find them really interesting, and it's really good to show a different way of looking at our local place. Yeah, and Facebook for me is a really useful tool, because a lot of people know my work, and it's possibly a bit different to most others. It's, that's not important to me. And I also do a lot of slideshows about my books and my work, and it's a way of advertising for me. I did a slideshow a couple of days ago in the local library, and lots of people came, and people have bought my books, and I did it free for the library, just to keep it open so that the council's less likely to close it, And yeah, it's a nice way to inform people of how special the local landscape is. It is really beautiful and unique.
First of all, what sort of challenges did you find, first of all, when you were starting out on this new career of building around photography? What were the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, the first challenges for me actually was just earning a living, and I was lucky. I left Ford Motor Company to do a photography degree in Derby, but luckily at that time I was also a canoe instructor and a mountain leader, so I worked locally around Derby with those skills. And also in the summer holidays I came to work at Outward Bound here. At that time, more and more of my time was taken up by outdoor pursuits, and that again gave me access to seeing more of the land. And also, it's like anyone who becomes self-employed, you've got this empty timing plan. It's like, and you've got to fill it and make some money. So I had, luckily, lots of strings to my bows. So there's the outdoor work, there was some counselling I did, stress management, I was a yoga teacher, and also I started my first book, and I got that accepted by a publisher, and had my first exhibitions. So it was a sort of conglomerate really of all those things. And as I've got older, I couldn't do the outdoor stuff so much, so the photography has grown more and more and more. And now it's probably 95% of my income now is just that one thing. And that's the thing that happens, I think, with a lot of self-employed people. You do need a lot of strings to your bow in the beginning, and confident, and you have to go out and make things happen. You can't just sit there and expect it to come to you. I remember when I went for my interview for my first photography qualifications in Blackpool, and the guy said to me, "You do realise that photography is a very male reserve?" I just laughed, because I'd spent 13 years at Ford Motor Company with 3,000 men, so for me it was no big deal. But there, not so much now, but there was the attitude at the time that to be a female photographer, also probably because the equipment was so heavy, but then you just get a nice friendly person to help you carry it in the hills, and that's what I've done. But yeah, and also the fact that I think when I first started too, photography wasn't seen as something people might want to buy. It was because it wasn't considered so much art. So I think, yeah, there's been a change in attitude towards photography. But also I was surprised that I sell so much photography, because people take photographs all the time. But because I know how to use a camera to create something possibly a bit different or a better view, etc., people buy my work. Because digitally it's much harder, because of contrast and various other technical things, to get a really good photograph. But I think people realise that.
Yeah, that thing of you still got to really look and think about why you're taking it, what are you taking.
Yeah, people go around snapping away. They don't stop, look and take photographs. It has a different thing for them. It has a different purpose. Most people's photographs, I should imagine 90% are of people and their family on holiday, which is fine, I take the photographs behind the people. So they think, oh, that was nice there. We were there then, Yeah. And often,
really
if I see people photographing each other and there's someone taking it, I'll offer and say, would you like me to photograph all of you? And I'll take a few, and they go, ooh, that's a nice one, which is nice to do. I like to do that. And I do say it is my job, so they don't think I'm some sort of weirdo. Yeah.
And give them your card and say, shop.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, my first ever exhibition that I did in the late 1990s was all about a slate quarry in North Wales, and it had been the subject of my final exhibition at my BA as well. And it was a black and white exhibition, and it was images taken of the quarry illustrating a really beautiful, sad poem written by Richard Owen, who was the caretaker of the quarry in the 1930s. And this is such a sad poem, and it's called The Old Boys at Rhosydd. And he writes about the death of the quarry, the stones echoing no more to the sounds of the men. And it was just beautiful. And that also was my first book. And that exhibition, I found out there was a slate museum in America, and I got in touch with them, and they paid for my exhibition to go to America, where they're near Vermont, New York State, where there is huge slate quarries, and a lot of the people from North Wales went over there in the late 1890s after a huge lockout in North Wales. So it was just so lovely to go out there and be shown the quarries, and the people out there are learning Welsh, and I'm still in touch with them now on Facebook. And that exhibition was in Green Mountain College, when the people from Penrhyn Quarry, the choir, were out there singing. And yeah, it was just fantastic. I just loved it. It was probably my most favourite exhibition and my favourite book. It all black and white. So moody and so moving.
About that time, I remember when I went to Oregon, I bumped into somebody on the trail there, an old guy, about 80, and we spoke a couple of words of Welsh to each other, and he had grown up in, I think he'd begun his life in North Wales, but that's right, I think he was born in, but then they went over to the States, and it was about the time of one of the big strikes, the Big Depression, and they came, I think, from Llanberis, and his father was a slate miner, and they were recruited on the west coast in the slate mines over that side.
Where, in America?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know there were any.
They were over in, I think it was in Oregon, or no, not in Oregon. It was in California.
Gosh.
That's where they came from, and he said a lot of people were actually recruited over because of their specialist knowledge.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, because around Vermont and that, they own the quarries,
Yeah.
the Welsh and the Italians work for them. And I was taken up in an aeroplane because over there they're all open cast mines, and so they dig a hole and fill their first one. It sort of moves along the landscape. Yeah,
Right.
very moving.
Yeah. Oh, there's quite a lot of interesting links there with Wales too, especially.
General social benefits. I think is introducing to people places, because people are just amazed what there is in the landscape, and obviously some people can't go there because for all sorts of reasons. So it's nice in the slideshows to bring it to them. And I have been working one day a month. It's just started working in the local hall, working for the Arts Council of Wales, working with children, with an artist, and all sorts of art projects. And that's what I've done with a company. It was in Aberystwyth, where she got money to work with children and working with photography. And we'd work with photography and writing and drawing to bring it all into one sort of creative project. And I so enjoyed working with children. They're just so uninhibited when it comes to art, much more than I think any other activity. The ones that often seem to struggle with the formal classrooms seem to excel when they're out on the landscape and free to capture. Yeah.
So for someone who's listening to this, watching this, who would love to get involved in some creative activity, love to start doing something broadly artistic, but they feel that they've got no creative ability, what would you say to them?
There are, nowadays, especially around here, there are so many art organisations and societies. I belong to one, but there are three that I know of. And the Merioneth Art Society, which was set up to encourage amateur painters mostly and printers, etc., into a group to encourage each other. And they have monthly workshops where people can go, and there's someone there who can help them. And there's two more other small local ones as well. It's a really fantastic area here, and I know there are, wherever people are, there are local organisations that you can go to where there's people who can help teach you, and there's all sorts of workshops, and some you pay, some you don't, and it's just about finding out, often from libraries, usually they know what's going on, and just asking people. Often people come into the gallery when I'm working there and they ask me what's going on. And so that's the thing, is just to ask. Look, make inquiries on Facebook. I've often seen on there people asking, are there any local organisations? And people are more than willing to actually tell them what's going on. So it's up to that individual to make the effort to ask, what's going on? What can I do? Go into galleries, local galleries, and see what's happening.
And for someone who really lacks confidence, what top tip would you give that person in getting over the resistance to getting started?
I think it is that sort of getting in touch with local small organisations, because for every two who are possibly a reasonable painter, there could be 10, 15 people who are just what they would call dabbling. And it's amazing how good people are. And to be in a creative state of mind, it's about relaxing and enjoying being there and what you're doing. So it can be really helpful to relieve the stress. I believe it's great for people with mental problems to work with creativity, because it's a different headspace. And it's not about, oh dear, I need to produce something to go on a wall. It's not about that. One of the projects I did years ago that was funded by the Arts Council of Wales, I worked with a local factory. 20 people chose to work with me, and I took them out to various places, and I showed them when we worked with photography, and I did some teaching and really enjoyed just playing. And at the end of that, each person chose 2 of their images that they was going to go on an exhibition in a local gallery, which for them was like, oh gosh, my work is going to be in a gallery. And it was fantastic. And it was such a boost to them. And when they had the opening day and we all went there and they saw their work on the wall, it's fantastic. And there's so many places now where you can put your work once you feel you get to that stage. You know, there's galleries, small galleries, there's cafes, all sorts of places that like to have work on the wall, and that will be for sale. I think one of the top things adults can learn from children is just, it's about play. It's not about producing the perfect work of art. It's about just enjoying, dabbling, sploshing, painting, whatever, and to see the joy those children have just making marks, because that's all art is making marks. And yeah, just that sort of play attitude of it without having expectations. That for me is the key, the enjoyment of it. How do I get the balance between admin and the enjoyment? It's I probably don't take so many photos now because I'm just started working on the next book and I'm working with an archaeologist. It's finding the time when we can both meet, and this book is next book can take forever. But I have because I've been self-employed for 35 years, I've got into a habit of, and I'm good at maths, which is really lucky, but I still do my accounts books as a book and online, and I've just been helping some friends who are just like to go self-employed, so I've let them photocopy my books to show them it can actually be quite simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. And what I've also found out that Gwynedd Council has sort of workshops and different things to help people become self-employed, because in this area there's not a lot of work and a lot of people are self-employed, and there are quite a few ways of getting help. And I did, when I first started up, there was Business Connect, where I got to meet people, and I got shown the best way with accounts, how to deal with tax, etc. So again, it's finding out what's out there, and again, it's up to that individual maybe to contact people who are self-employed, because this is what I actually offered to this person. But when I first started, there were a couple of people I knew that were very simple, not simple people, but people who I knew would have struggled with the admin side, but they showed me what they did, and it was very simple, and that really helped me. Lots of people are out there to give you advice, and that's it really. And I'm very good now at structuring my time between what has to be done, and I keep a year planner where everything is listed. I am very methodical and good at getting on with things, because you do need to have some sort of structure.
Get over prevarication.
No, I'm someone that if I see a problem or something needs doing, I do it. That's it.
Would that be a top tip?
Yeah. Don't try and sort of push it away and hide it, because it won't. Especially anything to do with tax and bills and things like that. And also getting help setting up ways of becoming known to the public to get your work out there, either on websites or whatever, or in galleries, whatever. There are a huge amount of ways now online to get your work seen. I don't bother too much because I don't need it. I use Facebook, I have a website. I don't do Instagram and all that because I just can't be bothered because I don't need it. But a lot of people do, and I find it very useful.
So what would you say would be the best first thing to do for somebody who's just starting out to get themselves known?
I think the first thing for getting yourself known is to get a website. Get a website, get your stuff online. A lot of art organisations have their own websites, so get in touch with them, link into them. There are various, for instance, there's a North Wales art group. You can get involved with them, get your work put online so that people get to see it. That's the thing, it's getting people to see your work.
Any simple tips for photographing your work so it looks good on a website?
I used to do a lot of that for people, but now I just say pick an overcast day, put your painting on an easel in natural light and take a photograph with your phone. But make sure it's quite even, dull light, no sun. And I often used to do it to teach people how to photograph their work, but that's the top tips. Just use your phone, and that's the best way. It won't cost you any money.
Yeah. Can you tell us about any current or recent projects or upcoming exhibitions that you're working on?
Yes, my latest book, The Cadvan Way, this is a journey to a very special place in North Wales and Ireland, which is my spiritual home. And there's a gallery en route which is going to have an exhibition next year encompassing artists, my photographs, painters, etc., of people that have taken images all along that route, because it's now becoming a pilgrimage route for the Diocese of Bangor, which is good news. And so that's a project for next year. Also, the book I've started, I might use photographs from that for a local exhibition. The Tabernacle near me has asked me for 5 images for a Christmas exhibition, which is a nice gesture. So it's always little things ongoing.
How and where can people find your work?
Artworks in Dyfi has a great big selection of my photographs and books, and it's a place where I work once a fortnight, and it also has its own website. Also my own website, jean-napier.com, has lots of galleries and talks, etc., that I'm doing on it. Local Facebook pages, there's all sorts of photographs I put on there, just for a bit of fun, really. Yeah, and also on my website there's various slideshows I'm doing over the next couple of months throughout North and Mid Wales. On my website I also have a page about the different types of teaching. I take groups out with one-to-ones, or I think up 1 to 6 is the most I will take, for obviously a fee per person, either a half or a whole day photographing. I don't so much do workshops anymore. It just sort of grew out of it, really. I prefer working with small groups or one-to-one tuition now.
Great. Okay, thanks very much. Thank you, Jean.
Yeah. This is Jessie, my photography assistant that comes out with me and trundles along. She's very good, well behaved, and she doesn't chase sheep, so which is excellent.